You wake up, check your phone, and see an unread message. Your mind jumps to the worst possible scenario. Maybe it's bad news. Maybe you did something wrong. Maybe someone is upset with you. A simple message, yet your thoughts spiral into negativity before you've even started your day. Sound familiar? Negative thinking is a habit that sneaks in unnoticed. It shapes the way you see yourself, the way you see others, and the way you see life. It whispers doubts when you try something new. It replays past mistakes when you should be moving forward. It makes you anticipate failure even when nothing has gone wrong. It creates stress, anxiety, and hesitation. It limits you in ways you don't even realize. The problem isn't just that negative thoughts exist. It's that most people accept them as truth. They assume their doubts mean something is wrong. They believe their fears are warnings. They treat their worst-case scenarios as reality. They let negativity shape their choices, their moods, and their future. But what if that wasn't necessary? What if negative thoughts were nothing more than passing mental noise? What if they had no real power unless you gave it to them? The truth is, negative thinking is not a personality trait. It's not who you are. It's a pattern. And like any pattern, it can be broken. Some people assume that to kill negative thinking, they need to become overly positive. They think it means forcing happiness or pretending problems don't exist. That's not what this book is about. You don't need blind optimism. You need to recognize the way your mind operates, take control of your thoughts, and develop a mental framework that stops negativity before it takes over. Consider this. Two people face the same setback. One sees it as confirmation that they are not good enough. The other sees it as a challenge to improve. The difference isn't in their circumstances. It's in their thinking. Their mindset determines how they respond, what they do next, and how much they grow. If you don't take control of your thoughts, they will control you. Your mind is either working for you or against you. Negative thinking doesn't just steal happiness in the moment. It shapes how you make decisions. It affects your relationships. It influences your confidence, your motivation, and your ability to take action. It turns minor setbacks into major obstacles. It makes small problems feel overwhelming. It creates suffering where none needs to exist. Think about all the times your mind has held you back. All the times you wanted to say something but didn't because you feared judgment. All the times you wanted to start something but didn't because you doubted yourself. All the times you convinced yourself that failure was inevitable before you even tried. Negative thoughts create hesitation. Hesitation creates inaction. Inaction keeps you stuck. Over time, this pattern turns into regret. The opportunities you didn't take, the changes you didn't make, the potential you never reached. You don't have to keep living that way. The way you think can change. And when it does, everything else changes with it. Imagine if, instead of automatically assuming the worst, your mind became trained to look for solutions. Imagine if, instead of doubting yourself, you built trust in your own ability. Imagine if, instead of reacting emotionally to every challenge, you developed mental resilience that kept you steady. That shift is possible, but it won't happen by accident. You have to train your mind just like you would train your body. You have to become aware of your thought patterns. You have to stop feeding the cycle of negativity. You have to build habits that reinforce a healthier way of thinking. The process won't be instant. You can't just decide to think differently and expect immediate results. But the more you challenge negative thoughts, the weaker they become. The more you replace them with better patterns, the stronger your mindset grows. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about developing a way of thinking that helps you move forward instead of holding you back. This book is not about pretending life is easy. It's about making sure your own mind isn't making it harder than it needs to be. It's about removing the mental roadblocks that stop you from reaching your potential. It's about breaking free from the cycle of doubt, worry, and hesitation that keeps you stuck. By the time you finish, you'll understand why negative thinking happens, how to stop feeding it, and how to build a mindset that works in your favor. You'll learn practical tools that shift your perspective, habits that strengthen your mental resilience, and strategies that keep negativity from running your life. Your thoughts influence your reality. If you're tired of feeling stuck, it's time to take control. Let's get started. Part 1, recognizing the enemy within. Your mind is constantly processing information. Every second, it takes in details from the world around you, filters them through past experiences, and creates thoughts that shape how you see things. The problem is that this process is not always accurate. Your brain is wired to prioritize survival, not happiness. This means it often overemphasizes threats, assumes the worst, and focuses on problems more than solutions. This is why negative thinking feels natural. It's not because reality is always bad. It's because your brain is built to be cautious, even when caution isn't necessary. Most people assume their thoughts are a reflection of reality. They believe that if they think something, it must be true. This is where negative thinking gains power. A thought appears, such as, "I'm not good enough," and instead of questioning it, they accept it as a fact. Over time, these automatic negative thoughts become deeply ingrained patterns. They no longer feel like passing thoughts. They feel like personal truths. Imagine someone who constantly tells themselves they are unlucky. They believe that things never work out for them. When they face a setback, they see it as proof. When something good happens, they dismiss it as temporary. This mindset doesn't just shape their perception, it affects their actions. They stop trying because they assume failure is inevitable. Their thinking creates a self-fulfilling cycle. The more they believe things won't work, the less they try. The less they try, the less they achieve. The less they achieve, the more they believe they are unlucky. The same cycle applies to many forms of negative thinking. A person who believes they are unworthy will struggle to accept love and respect, even when it is given freely. A person who believes they will always fail will avoid taking risks, ensuring they never succeed. A person who sees themselves as incapable will hesitate to learn new things, reinforcing the idea that they cannot improve. Negative thoughts are not just thoughts, they shape behavior, and behavior shapes outcomes. One of the most damaging aspects of negative thinking is that it often goes unnoticed. People don't realize they are trapped in a cycle. They assume their doubts are rational, their fears are justified, and their inner criticism is necessary for improvement. But in reality, most negative thoughts are distortions. They are exaggerated, irrational, and rooted in past conditioning, rather than actual evidence. Consider how often people jump to conclusions. A friend takes longer than usual to reply to a message, and the mind immediately assumes they are upset. A small mistake at work leads to the belief that everything will go wrong. A simple challenge turns into overwhelming frustration because the mind magnifies the difficulty. These are all examples of negative thinking distorting reality. The brain fills in the gaps with worst-case scenarios, reinforcing stress and anxiety. The first step to killing negative thinking is recognizing it for what it is. You are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are habits, and habits can be changed. But you cannot change what you do not see. This is why awareness is so important. Before you can break free from negative thought patterns, you must learn to identify them. Start by paying attention to your inner dialogue. What do you tell yourself when things go wrong? What do you assume about yourself when faced with a challenge? Do you default to self-criticism? Do you immediately focus on problems instead of solutions? Do you interpret uncertainty as danger? These patterns reveal the way your mind operates. Many people are shocked when they start observing their thoughts. They realize how often their minds generate negativity without any real reason. They see how much time and energy is wasted on worrying about things that never happen. They notice how small events trigger exaggerated emotional reactions. This awareness is uncomfortable at first, but it is necessary. You cannot change what you do not confront. Some might wonder if negative thinking is always bad. Isn't it necessary to prepare for difficulties? Shouldn't people acknowledge risks? The answer is yes, but there is a difference between awareness and obsession. A person who recognizes a challenge and plans for it is thinking rationally. A person who constantly anticipates disaster and assumes failure is trapped in negative thinking. The goal is not to ignore reality. The goal is to stop seeing problems where none exist. To truly break free from negative thought patterns, you must challenge them. When your mind tells you something negative, ask yourself if it is actually true. What evidence supports it? What evidence contradicts it? If a friend told you the same thought about themselves, would you agree with them? Most of the time, negative thoughts fall apart under scrutiny. They feel real, but they are not based on facts. They are assumptions, distortions, and outdated fears masquerading as truth. Killing negative thinking does not mean never having negative thoughts. It means no longer believing them automatically. It means learning to separate passing mental noise from reality. It means building a mindset that serves you instead of sabotaging you. This shift does not happen overnight, but it starts the moment you stop treating negative thoughts as truth. The less you feed them, the weaker they become. The weaker they become, the more control you gain over your own mind. And once you control your mind, you control your life. Part 2, breaking the cycle of mental sabotage. Imagine waking up late for work. Your first thought is, this is going to be a terrible day. The moment that thought takes hold, everything feels worse. You rush through your morning, feeling frustrated. Every small inconvenience adds to the belief that your day is ruined. But what if you had responded differently? What if instead of assuming the worst, you had simply acknowledged that you were running late and focused on moving forward? That one shift in thinking could have changed everything. This is how negative thoughts take control. They start small, but the moment you accept them as truth, they grow. One negative thought leads to another. Before you know it, you're stuck in a cycle of stress, frustration, and self-doubt. But here's the good news. You don't have to keep thinking this way. You have the power to break the cycle. The first step in stopping mental sabotage is recognizing that thoughts are not facts. Just because you think something does not make it true. Your mind creates stories based on past experiences, fears, and assumptions. These stories feel real, but they are not reality. A simple mistake does not mean you are a failure. A single rejection does not mean you are unworthy. A difficult moment does not mean the entire day is ruined. The problem is that negative thoughts are convincing. They feel urgent. They demand attention. And because they trigger strong emotions, they seem important. But emotions are not always accurate. They reflect what you believe, not necessarily what is real. One of the most common patterns of negative thinking is catastrophizing. This happens when a small problem is exaggerated into something much worse. You forget to respond to an email and assume your boss is upset. You feel tired and convince yourself you're getting sick. You face a minor setback and start believing you'll never succeed. In reality, most problems are temporary and manageable, but catastrophizing makes them feel permanent and overwhelming. To stop catastrophizing, you need to question your thoughts. Ask yourself, what is the worst that could actually happen? How likely is that outcome? Even if the worst happens, would I be able to handle it? Most of the time, the worst-case scenario is far less serious than your mind suggests. And even if challenges arise, you have dealt with difficulties before. You can do it again. Another destructive habit is rumination, replaying negative thoughts over and over. This happens when your mind refuses to let go of a mistake, an argument, or a perceived failure. Instead of moving forward, you relive the situation, analyzing every detail, imagining different outcomes, and blaming yourself. Rumination does not solve anything. It only deepens frustration and stress. It keeps you stuck in problems that no longer exist. The solution to rumination is action. When you catch yourself overthinking, interrupt the cycle. Shift your focus to something productive. Go for a walk, start a task, or talk to someone. The more you engage with the present moment, the less power past mistakes have over you. Another major form of mental sabotage is self-criticism. Many people speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to a friend. They call themselves stupid, weak, or not good enough. They focus on flaws instead of strengths. They assume they will fail before they even try. This kind of thinking destroys confidence and motivation. If you constantly tell yourself you are not capable, you will start to believe it. Breaking free from self-criticism starts with awareness. Pay attention to your inner dialogue. When you notice a negative thought about yourself, ask, would I say this to someone I care about? If not, why am I saying it to myself? Replace harsh criticism with a balanced perspective. Instead of thinking, I always mess things up, try, I made a mistake, but I can fix it. Instead of, I'm not good enough, remind yourself, I am learning and improving. Your thoughts shape your identity. Choose ones that support growth instead of tearing you down. Many people assume that to stop negative thinking, they need to force themselves to be positive. This is not true. Toxic positivity, ignoring problems and pretending everything is fine, can be just as harmful as negative thinking. The goal is not to deny reality. The goal is to approach challenges with a mindset that allows for solutions. For example, if you face a setback, you do not need to tell yourself that everything is perfect. But you also do not need to spiral into self-pity. A more effective response is, "This is difficult, but I can handle it." This mindset acknowledges the problem while keeping you focused on progress. Breaking the cycle of mental sabotage requires consistent effort. Negative thinking is a habit, and like any habit, it takes time to change. The key is to become aware of your thoughts, challenge distortions, and replace destructive patterns with constructive ones. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. Your mind is a powerful tool. It can either work for you or against you. You have the ability to train it. The choice is yours. Part 3, replacing destructive patterns with constructive ones. Imagine trying to drive with the emergency brake on. No matter how hard you press the gas, the car struggles to move forward. This is exactly what happens when negative thinking dominates your mind. No matter how much effort you put into improving your life, self-doubt, worry, and fear hold you back. You cannot make real progress while carrying destructive thought patterns. The solution is not to push harder, it is to release the brake. Breaking negative thinking is not just about stopping harmful thoughts. It is about replacing them with better ones. Your mind needs direction. If you remove negative thoughts but do not replace them, your brain will default to old habits. To truly change your thinking, you must train your mind to focus on what helps rather than what hurts. The first step is to shift from problems to solutions. Negative thinking is often problem-focused. It dwells on what is wrong, what could go wrong, or why things will not work. Constructive thinking acknowledges challenges, but focuses on finding answers. Instead of thinking, "I will never get this right," shift to, "What is one step I can take to improve?" Instead of dwelling on failure, ask, "What can I learn from this?" These small shifts keep you moving forward instead of getting stuck in frustration. Language plays a huge role in shaping thoughts. Many people reinforce negativity without realizing it through the words they use. They say things like, "I'm terrible at this," or "I always mess up," without questioning the impact of these statements. Words create reality. If you constantly tell yourself you are incapable, your brain will find ways to confirm that belief. A simple shift in language can change everything. Instead of "I can't do this," try "I'm learning how to do this." Instead of "This is impossible," try "This is challenging, but I can figure it out." The words you use shape the way you see yourself. Choose them carefully. Mental discipline is another key factor in breaking negative thought patterns. Most people let their thoughts run wild. They react to every idea that pops into their head, whether it is helpful or not. But just like a muscle, your mind can be trained. When a negative thought appears, do not immediately accept it as truth. Pause. Question it. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me, or hurting me? If it is hurting you, replace it with something more constructive. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. Another way to strengthen constructive thinking is to focus on what is working. Negative thoughts often come from a place of lack. What is missing, what is wrong, what is not good enough. But in every situation, there is something going right. Training your mind to notice progress rather than just problems shifts your entire perspective. Instead of focusing on how far you still have to go, recognize how far you have already come. Instead of fixating on weaknesses, acknowledge your strengths. This does not mean ignoring challenges. It means creating a balanced view that fuels motivation rather than drains it. Many people assume that their emotions control their thoughts. They believe that if they feel bad, they must think negatively. But the opposite is also true. Your thoughts influence your emotions. If you constantly think in destructive ways, you will feel stuck, frustrated, and anxious. When you shift your thinking, your emotions follow. You begin to feel more in control, more capable, and more focused. This does not mean you will never have negative emotions, but it does mean you will not be ruled by them. Changing thought patterns is not about forcing yourself to be positive all the time. It is about creating a mindset that helps you navigate life more effectively. It is about replacing habits that keep you stuck with habits that move you forward. The more you practice constructive thinking, the stronger it becomes. Over time, what once felt difficult will become second nature. Your mind will start working for you instead of against you. And when that happens, everything in your life will change. Part 4, emotional mastery and resilience. You know the feeling. Something goes wrong, and before you can even think, a wave of frustration, sadness, or fear takes over. Your heart races, your stomach tightens, your mind spirals. Suddenly, one bad moment feels like a bad day. One bad day feels like a bad life. And in that moment, it seems impossible to see beyond the emotion. This is how negative thinking takes hold, not through logic, but through the overwhelming force of emotion. When emotions take control, thinking clearly becomes difficult. You react instead of respond. You make decisions based on fear, anger, or insecurity rather than reality. You assume the worst because that is what emotions make you feel. This is why breaking free from negative thinking requires emotional mastery. You cannot always control what happens, but you can control how you respond. And that response determines everything. Most people believe emotions just happen to them. They assume that if they feel bad, they have no choice but to stay stuck in that feeling. But emotions are not fixed. They come and go. What makes them last longer is the story you attach to them. If something upsets you and you keep replaying it in your mind, the emotion lingers. If you take a setback and turn it into a personal failure, the disappointment deepens. But if you learn to let go, emotions lose their power. Letting go does not mean ignoring feelings. It means refusing to let them control you. The key is awareness. When you feel overwhelmed by emotion, pause. Instead of getting lost in it, observe it. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Naming the emotion creates distance. It reminds you that you are experiencing a feeling, but you are not the feeling itself. You are separate from it. And if you are separate from it, you can choose how to handle it. Perspective is everything. Imagine facing a problem. If you see it as a disaster, your body reacts with stress. If you see it as a challenge to overcome, your body shifts into action mode. The situation has not changed, only your interpretation of it. This is why some people remain calm under pressure while others fall apart. It is not about what happens, it is about the meaning you give it. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming emotions are always accurate. Just because you feel unworthy does not mean you are. Just because you feel incapable does not mean you cannot succeed. Feelings are influenced by past experiences, fears, and even physical state. A bad night's sleep can make problems feel worse. Stress from an unrelated issue can make small setbacks seem overwhelming. This is why emotional resilience matters. If you allow every feeling to dictate your reality, you will always be at the mercy of your emotions. Resilience is the ability to stay grounded even when emotions rise. It does not mean never feeling bad. It means knowing that feelings pass and you do not have to act on them. When something triggers a strong emotional reaction, the first step is to pause. Breathe. Before you react, ask yourself, will this matter a week from now, a year from now? Most of the time, the answer is no. What feels urgent in the moment is often temporary. Recognizing this prevents impulsive decisions that you might regret later. Developing resilience also means shifting focus from what you cannot control to what you can. You cannot control other people's actions, but you can control your response. You cannot erase the past, but you can decide what to do next. You cannot prevent every challenge, but you can develop the strength to handle them. This shift in thinking takes you out of victim mode and into a position of power. People who lack resilience let emotions dictate their lives. If they feel discouraged, they quit. If they feel hurt, they close themselves off. If they feel insecure, they never take risks. But emotions should not be the deciding factor in your life. Actions should be. If you only take action when you feel like it, you will never achieve consistency. The strongest people are not the ones who never struggle. They are the ones who keep moving forward, even when it is hard. Building resilience does not mean suppressing emotions. It means learning how to manage them. Instead of letting feelings spiral out of control, learn to redirect them. If you feel anxious, instead of feeding the fear, focus on what you can do right now. If you feel frustrated, instead of dwelling on the problem, look for the next step. Emotions will always exist, but they do not have to define your reality. Your mind is powerful, but only if you learn to use it correctly. If you allow emotions to run unchecked, They will lead you in circles. If you master them, they will become a source of strength. This does not mean you will never feel negative emotions again. It means you will no longer be trapped by them. You will know that no matter how you feel in the moment, you have the ability to move forward. And that ability is what changes everything. Part 5, living with a stronger mindset. If you plant a seed in unhealthy soil, it will struggle to grow. No matter how much water or sunlight it gets, the poor foundation will limit its potential. The same is true for your mindset. No amount of effort will create lasting change if your thinking is working against you. If you constantly sabotage yourself with doubt, fear, and negativity, progress will always feel like an uphill battle. To truly change your life, you must first change the way you think. Most people go through life without questioning their thought patterns. They assume the way they think is just the way they are. But thinking is not fixed. It is a habit. Just like any habit, it can be changed. The problem is that negative thinking feels natural because it has been reinforced over time. The more you repeat a thought, the stronger it becomes. If you constantly tell yourself you are not good enough, that thought turns into a belief. And once something becomes a belief, it shapes your actions, your decisions, and your future. This is why shifting your mindset is so important. A strong mindset does not mean never facing difficulties. It means handling them in a way that does not break you. It means refusing to let obstacles define you. It means staying committed to growth even when things are hard. Without a strong mindset, challenges feel like stop signs. With one, they become stepping stones. One of the biggest mistakes people make is waiting for motivation. They assume they need to feel confident before taking action. They believe they need the perfect moment to start. But waiting for the right feeling is a trap. Confidence does not come first. Action does. The more you take action despite fear or doubt, the more confidence you build. Strength comes from doing, not from waiting. Another mistake is expecting an easy path. Many people give up when things become difficult, assuming difficulty means failure. But struggle is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that you are growing. The strongest people are not the ones who avoid difficulties. They are the ones who push through them. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to build resilience. Every time you refuse to give in to negativity, you are training your mind to be stronger. Sustaining a strong mindset requires consistency. It is not something you develop once and keep forever. Just like physical fitness, mental strength needs regular training. This means actively choosing better thoughts every day. It means catching yourself when you fall into old patterns. It means practicing self-discipline even when you do not feel like it. Your mindset affects everything: your relationships, your success, your ability to handle stress, and your overall happiness. If you let negativity take over, it will control your life. But if you take control of your thoughts, you take control of your future. Every moment is a choice. Every thought you entertain is shaping who you become. The question is, are you choosing a mindset that serves you or one that limits you? The difference between people who succeed and people who stay stuck is not luck. It is not intelligence. It is mindset. Those who succeed are not the ones who never doubt themselves. They are the ones who refuse to let doubt stop them. They are not the ones who never face setbacks. They are the ones who get back up. A strong mindset is not about being perfect. It is about being persistent. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not your fears. You are the choices you make moving forward. You can choose to let negative thinking define you, or you can choose to break free from it. You can choose to stay stuck, or you can choose to grow. No one else can make that choice for you. It is yours alone. This book is not just about understanding negative thinking. It is about killing it. It is about taking back control of your mind. It is about refusing to live a life dictated by fear, self-doubt, and hesitation. The work is not always easy, but it is always worth it. Because once you master your mindset, everything else follows. Your future depends on what you do now. The question is, what will you choose?